Well, so much has been said about, the food security or the food situation in the country. How can we really go back, leaving the mono economy that we've always had, going back to the lands, as I want to put it. But again, some have also asked about one commodity that the government launched not quite long, the cassava bread. Well, joining us to look at food security this morning as the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Mr. Akinwunmi Adesina. Good to have you this morning.
It's good to be here, thank you.
I'm quite sure you had breakfast today.
I had cassava bread.
All right, okay. What exactly is the situation concerning food? The last time we'll try to link this with some of the crises happening in some other places, because they have tried to say if we have some crisis in some parts of the country, some farmers have not been able to produce food because some of these products or commodities come from some regions, to the extent that people fear that we might just be heading towards some kind of should I say, famine in the country. Are we in a dire situation with food?
No, absolutely, we're not in a dire situation. Famine, we don't have a famine problem. We have a dislocation problem in terms of food supply. As you know, there's no denying the fact that we have a security challenge in the country, which Mr. President is well on top of. We continue to work on that very seriously. In some parts of the north where we have this issue, you have the displacement of labor. And also farmers in some areas have not been able to plant, and some of them have even moved out of where they were planting before. It also created, in some cases, a situation where those that are buying the food, from the urban areas in the south couldn't really move up to the north to get it. So you have a situation in some of the areas where you have a glut, but yet you have a high demand in the south. And so, for example, earlier this year, we had a situation with a case of onions in which the price of onion essentially collapsed simply because of that dislocation. But these are all, transitory issues that will settle out. It has nothing structural to do with the sector. If anything else, the sector is doing well. So as you know, as a government, Mr. President is working 24/7 on this particular issue of security. But I must say that, the performance, though, of the agricultural sector continues well on track, well ahead of track. If you look at what we are doing with respect of the policies, the fiscal policies that have been set, and the impact of that, even on the stock exchange. Yesterday night I was here, actually here in Lagos, to speak to the Nigerian Securities Exchange. And I was saying that, the performance of the agricultural stocks have increased tremendously because of the fiscal policies and that the government has set. Whether you're looking at the Okomo oil, whether you're looking at the Presco, whether you're looking at all of these agricultural stocks, they're performing very, very well. Why? Because the market is responding to our policies. The market is responding to the programs that we put in place. And the level of confidence in the agricultural strategy in Nigeria is very huge. So I think we will overcome those initial security issues.
For you to say, okay, that we can actually get them on the stock exchange and so many other things that you just talked about, we must also be talking about some kind of perennial kind of farming situation whereby year in, year out, irrespective of season, you get to see some products or commodities. In some places, whether you like it or not, they don't have a situation where they say this is the mango season, this is the apple season. Irrespective of what season it is, you get to see mangoes, you get to see apple. Are we looking towards having that kind of perennial farming system here in Nigeria?
Well, we're actually doing that in a number of ways. One is to, first and foremost, reduce the number of losses, amount of losses we have. The post-harvest losses in Nigeria is quite high. And that's because...
Why is that?
Well, because, first and foremost, we don't have very good storage facilities. As a government over the last 1 year, Mr. President, we've completed a number of silos across the country. About 30 of those have been completed, which makes it easier now for farmers to be able to store their grains, and therefore they're not losing it. Not just even losing it. You might have aflatoxin contamination, which is often a problem you have if you don't store your grain properly. The second is with regard to the issue of processing and adding value. If you look at everything we are doing in the agricultural sector, it's creating markets. If you create markets, there's a demand for the raw material. So that's why you find I'm always very excited about the issue of cassava, because cassava, if you harvest it and you don't process it within 24 hours, maximum 48 hours, that's it. You've lost everything. And so if you're a country that is the largest producer of cassava in the world, producing 40 million metric tons, and we don't have the processing capacity to quickly turn that into different products, we lose all of that. That's why government is working very actively to create markets for that. That's why you see us working on the high quality cassava flour, for example, that we are using to make bread. That's why we're looking at in terms of chips. We are looking in terms of starch. We're looking in terms of ethanol. But I'm very excited to let you know that in each of these areas where Mr. President has given us huge amount of political support, we're making great headways. Take the case of high quality cassava flour. On November 30 last year was when I presented to His Excellency the President the Cassava Breading Council, and Mr. President loved the bread, and he ate it and gave it to everybody else to eat. And he directed that we should go ahead and commercialize that bread. Now, some people may think that was a political thing. Absolutely not. It is an economic issue, and here's why. We are spending 635 billion naira importing wheat every year. If you look at our trend of our consumption for wheat, by 2030, we will be consuming 17 million metric tons from the current 4.2 million metric tons of wheat. That means that by 2030, we will be importing the entire production of Canada, which is the third largest producer of wheat in the world. But we don't grow wheat. It doesn't create jobs here. We export jobs to the other countries. We don't create markets for the cassava that you were talking about losing a lot of the things, right? And so it's an economic decision. So what we have done was that within 3 months of Mr. President's directive in council, I'm excited to say that Nigeria has actually commercialized that bread. And that bread is right here, done by UTC.
That's the first time I'm seeing the cassava bread.
Yeah, this is the cassava bread.